Let's talk about the spy for profit methodology. Now, I've been telling you this is a science. It's not just an art, it's not just some creative thing. It's a science. There's math and there's numbers behind what you're going to learn in this class, and there's a bit of a methodology to it. So, the first thing I have to say before you watch this video, don't get overwhelmed. Don't let some of the complexity bother you. By the time we get through the class and go phase to phase, everything will start kind of coming into focus for you, and it'll be getting a little bit easier to understand and, of course, easier to do and to carry out some of these exercises and what we're going to work on. But there is a bit of a scientific method to this process, and you kind of need to understand that. I'm not going to explain every single thing inside this presentation, but I want to give you a taste of what we're going to do and kind of how it all works and why we do it. So let's talk about the why. Why do we get all into this competitive intelligence, into the science of really spying on competitors and observing the internet and seeing where money's flowing through advertising and seeing where profits are made? Why are we doing this? Why are we, spending the time to do it? Well, the internet landscape has become hyper competitive. You've heard me talk about this before. There's so many people online doing business. The barriers to entry to get online and make money are very, very low. So many people are starting online businesses. Well, when that happens, it gets crowded. There's more and more business. There's more and more money being divided amongst people that are able to get it and able to profit from it. So it becomes more and more competitive. So data mining and using data, and of course that goes along with competitive intelligence, all of that is the future of business. You're just going to get a many, many year head start before most people even think of doing some of the things that you're going to learn to do in this class. But the data is where all the value is. Marketing, again, is a very creative endeavor. It's kind of like art. There are many ways to do marketing. There are many ways to write copy. There are many ways to do graphics and visuals and approach things. But business is about math, revenue, and profit. And we're focused on profit here, how much income you can make from your business efforts, whether it's in your existing business or in a new opportunity, which the thing you really got to keep in mind when you learn this stuff that you're going to learn in this class, the hardest part for you is going to be deciding which opportunities to go after because there are so many incredible ones. That's going to be your biggest challenge. But I'm actually going to help you use some math, and I'm going to explain that in this presentation on how to evaluate opportunities and how to kind of prioritize them based on a value system and formula that I've created. So we're going to go over that and you'll understand that in just a moment. Another reason why we're doing this is because traffic has gotten more expensive. If you've been marketing online for any number of years, especially kind of as the AdWords days took off with Google, it used to be like penny and nickel traffic, and then it got more expensive. And then, of course, Facebook came along and you could get penny clicks and it was cheap, and now it's more expensive. That's always the trend in any traffic source that works. As the demand goes up, it gets more expensive. So the internet now is becoming pretty expensive for traffic. There are still certainly some bargain places to find traffic. And what you're going to learn in this class using these competitive intelligence tools and monitoring other people's advertising, they'll show you where the inexpensive advertising and traffic is so you can just take advantage of it as well. But overall, traffic has kind of gone up in most niche markets on the internet. So as it's gotten more expensive, it's harder and harder to turn a profit. And so we need these competitive advantages. We need this edge of what competitive intelligence will do for us and what this whole process will do for us. Now, of course, the other great reason why is online tools are recording practically everything that happens online with digital marketing, with business online. So you're kind of just a fool if you don't use this data and you don't use these tools to your advantage in making money. It's all out there and it's all publicly available, so you might as well use it and take a smarter approach to making money online. And of course, the biggest reason why is simply leverage. We're able to reduce our risks and increase our gains. Now, never before in the history of business has there been such a thing as online real-time digital competitive intelligence that has data that a business owner or entrepreneur or marketer or salesman or anyone could use to make more money, to see what's making money, and then to basically do that. So it's incredible leverage not to have to risk your time in figuring things out. Just a few years ago, marketing online, as some of you in this class have been around a long time, you know what it was like. You had to test everything yourself. You had to try stuff out. You had to see if a market could support a business. You had to see if they'd buy a certain product. You'd have to see if certain things would convert to get people to buy something. You'd have to see if a certain business needed a complex a complex funnel of multiple things for sale in order to make enough money to turn a profit. So anyways, you know all those things if you've been around this game very long. You know that it would take a lot of your time as well as money. And that's a big problem. Doing business now, you don't want to take a lot of risk. You don't want to spend a lot of your time because things move so quickly. And you certainly don't want to risk a lot of money without hopefully knowing that you're going to get a good gain back and a profit from it. So here are 6 core principles that we need to have in our little group here in this class in approaching the SPY for Profit method and in approaching this process. So here are 6 core principles I want you to keep in mind. You should write these down, even print them out, put them near your desk, and always be faced with them. Number 1, we want to focus on any opportunity's profit potential, not sales, not excitement, not, vision for the potential future, profit potential. What potential does it have to make money, to make a profit? Again, not sales, but profit. You oftentimes see things where people are talking about, oh, this made X amount of money or brought in this amount of sales. We don't care about sales. We care about making money, which is ultimately profit and income. Focusing on speed to market. In business, speed is everything. We don't want to get involved with projects that take many, many months before we can even make money from them. So when we evaluate things, when we look at competitors, when we see what they're doing, when we figure out who's making money and how it's being done, one of the things we're going to do in the evaluation process of figuring out if something is worth going after and emulating is how long will it take for us to get to market and start making money. So speed is very critical, and you're going to see that theme, the speed theme, throughout the methodology of this class. We're going to focus on cost to market. Just as important as getting to market quickly and being able to profit quickly from our decisions is limiting the amount of money that we spend. If we limit the amount of money that we spend to get to market and start making money, it allows us to go after multiple opportunities. It allows us to have more money to actually grow the business and reinvest in traffic and other things. And so getting to market to start generating money, but doing it at the lowest cost possible is very, very important to us. Sell what's already selling. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. We don't need to try to create something crazy and new and test this or test that. Look, the process of all this is to sell what's already selling. That's the benefit of leveraging other people's hard work that they've already spent the money and time to figure out what markets will buy online. So that's one of the principles. Now, when we get to later on towards phase 4, when we talk about really building an emulation engine and rolling this stuff out and building these emulated businesses, you're going to want to differentiate. You do want to do things differently and better and add more value. I'm not just teaching you to straight up copy off of a business, but we do want to sell what's already proven to sell in the market and then expand upon that and even maybe go into other product lines and things that they'll also buy. We want to market how things are already being successfully marketed. Again, we don't want to reinvent the wheel here. There's no reason to try stuff that's unproven or test stuff that we have intuition about or we think may work, or to try things that we've tried in our other businesses and other marketing that we know works. We don't want to do any of that. We want to start with a foundation of marketing a new business the way it's already being successfully marketed. And that those marketing techniques and processes change market to market, like niche to niche. So we want to market the way that niche is already proven to be done. So we're going to go over all this. You'll see this start to unfold as we look into examples and start checking out different businesses. But that's what we need to keep in mind. And of course, last but not least of these core principles, we want to generate traffic from the same profitable sources. It's a common theme here. We just want to do what others are already doing that's proven scientifically to get results. So when it comes to traffic, at least initially, look, you can always expand beyond what competitors are doing, but if they're making good money, do what they do. And that's the whole concept behind all of this. Just do what they do, and it shortcuts you to give you the best chance of also making money. So our primary mission when we do competitive intelligence, when we do evaluate competitors and businesses and potential opportunities, is to uncover everything. Much of the lessons that you'll learn, many of the lessons, I should say, that you'll learn in the class are all about uncovering data and information and intelligence about different businesses and competitors. And when I say uncover everything, I mean we're going to work hard to attempt to uncover everything. You can't always get all of the answers to the questions that we want to ask about certain businesses, but in many cases you can. And the more that we can answer, the more valuable that is for us to find ways to be able to leverage that and make money. So we want to uncover everything about competitors and businesses. What products do they sell? Who is their supplier? Who created their products? What's their margin? How long have they been selling these products? What's their average customer value? Do they sell multiple products? Who are their vendors? Who are their suppliers? Who are their partners? Who are their affiliates? Who are their employees? Who are their outsourced workers? How big is their team? What does their funnel look like? Are they using behavioral triggering? Where do they buy their traffic? What keywords convert for them? What is their ad budget? What is their ideal customer demographic? What is their content strategy? What type of copywriting do they use? Are they an established brand? How long have they been in business? What is their estimated annual revenue? What is their estimated annual profit? Do they use discounts and special offers? And what are they trying to do to expand? Now this is only some of what we're going to work to uncover. I just wanted to give you some quick examples. We're going to dig in and uncover a lot of stuff. Now, if all this is scaring you off because, oh, that seems like a lot of work, it's not. A lot of the tools that you're going to learn to use and the methods that you're going to learn to use are going to teach you how to get these answers, how to ferret these things out, how to become a detective and find these things out about a competitor and about other businesses. So once we start answering these questions, we can use those answers to start formulating a lot of different things. How valuable the potential opportunity is of what they do and how they're making money. And in the process of that, we can determine whether we want to get involved in that market and kind of go after it and do the same. Now, if you have an existing business and we do this for one of your competitors, we really deconstruct and analyze everything they're doing. It can easily show you things that you need to be doing. Of course, if you look at the right tools and know how to interpret the data, because I've said this before and I want to say it again, you can look at results online and be kind of confused by them or distracted by them or even misled by them because sometimes they're not turning a profit. There can be businesses that make good money and even make good profit, but they could be doing other things that aren't working and making money. So you're going to learn to separate some of those things. But as you learn to ferret out these little things and techniques and different ways that they're using their business to make money, you can easily add that to your business if you already have an existing business. If you're looking for a new opportunity or a new business, then we use some of these answers to formulate if the opportunity is worth going after, of course, how we can get there quickly if we can, what cost would it take us to get there as well. And when I say cost, it doesn't take thousands upon thousands of dollars to compete with a lot of these companies that are doing well. Now, giant companies, yes, of course, and I'm going to talk to you about that. We won't even go there. But for other low-hanging fruit, for other very lucrative opportunities, a lot of times you can get into them without spending a lot of money because you're going to learn to test the market, to validate it, get some results, and then snowball that by scaling it. We're going to go through all this, but just keep that in mind. So again, coming back to the couple core principles of speed to market and cost to get to market, we figure those things out as we start to learn some of these answers about our competitors and about finding competitors of different opportunities. So as we get this data, it all starts coming together to just make sense essentially, and you'll see it all start coming together. I don't mean to overwhelm you with all this stuff, but it'll start coming together. So let's talk about what our action flow chart is for the method of all this, the process. So the first stage is what I call discovering or discover. Now, this discovery phase is simply where we're going to use some tools to see where money's flowing and where money's being made online to find profit opportunities, to find where people are turning a profit. Now, that doesn't mean we want to get involved there or even go there. There's a lot more involved before we do that. But it all starts with kind of discovering what's going on and where the action is. The second step of our process is to evaluate those opportunities, to evaluate what these competitors are doing, and if it matches up with all of our criteria that I'm going to lay out for you in this class of if we should go after it as a good opportunity. Then the next step is to validate this opportunity, this concept, this process of wanting to sell whatever it is that we see that's selling well and that we have done our due diligence on. We then validate the process. Now, when we validate the process, we don't yet sell the thing, okay? But what we do is we set up some marketing and we run some tests to try to get some results that will indicate that if we did sell the thing, the product, whatever it was, or service, that we would make money. So if you come from the old direct marketing mail order days of many years ago, you probably know what a dry test is. So a dry test was when somebody wanted to sell a product, even through an infomercial, a newspaper or magazine ad, or any other kind of advertisement, they basically could market and sell a product that didn't exist yet, that they didn't even have yet to sell. So they literally collected people's money in advance, almost like pre-selling it, and then promised to ship it in 6 to 8 weeks. You probably remember that if you're older than 25. The old, it'll ship in 6 to 8 weeks. That's because they hadn't even manufactured the product yet in most cases. They were using the sales money to do that. Well, a lot of times they run a dry test like that to validate a market and a product idea to see if it will sell. And if it doesn't sell well, they never even manufacture or go source the product. They just return the money and give refunds, and that's how they test quickly whether a business is worth building. Anyways, in our process, we will validate ideas online by doing some things, what I call a moist test. It's not quite a dry test, but we don't collect people's money, and there are a lot of laws related to that anyways. But there are ways to do it where we don't actually collect people's money, but we do get them to take some calls to action, do some things, and then we can look at that data and I can give you some numbers behind what percentage of those people would have probably bought. A great example of this, a few years ago, I was looking at a market online and I wanted to make an info product. It was actually like a how-to DVD for that market. And it was going to take some time and a little bit of money to pay to have that DVD made. It was an info product. And so I wanted to run this, what I call a moist test on the market, where I could basically put up some forms, give them calls to action, but I wasn't taking their money, but I was going to be able to indicate, have a pretty good idea if they would buy or not. And I found out that I was losing almost $3,000 a day by not having the product ready for sale. And let me tell you, when you start validating some of these concepts and some of these to go after these opportunities, and you see that you could have been making really good money, even a lot of money, if you were just had the product already selling, nothing will motivate you faster. Talk about speed to get that thing to market to start selling it. Anyway, so this kind of middle stage of our process is to validate a market and opportunity to see if we can start getting some activity, getting some results, way before we invest in really finishing a product or paying someone else to make the product or us making it ourselves, whatever the product may or may not be. And so that's what we do in the validation stage. After the validation stage, when we figure out, hey, there is money to be made here, hey, we are getting results here from our marketing, then we go into launching that product to market, getting it out there, generating the traffic, and starting to actually make sales and build the business. And then ultimately, the last phase is scaling the business. Once we get it out there, we start making some sales, hopefully we start making some profit, then it's time to really ramp up and scale the business. And we'll go over the majority of these things, at least the lower part, in phase 4, which we call building the emulation engine. We really talk about how to actually take all this stuff just from the conceptual phase and make it real so it's actually generating revenue and is a real business. So I got to preface this. Don't get overwhelmed by this. I want to share a bit of this with you. We've been talking about it being a science. We're talking about math, business is numbers. So I want to go over something. So one of the big things I believe in is what I call an opportunity factor. And this is a calculation. It's a number that comes from a formula that gives a value that rates. It's this opportunity factor number that kind of rates how strong an opportunity is, basically. And so when we go through this whole process that you're going to learn on how to use these tools, how to evaluate competitors, how to evaluate what's going on in different markets, you'll learn to assign this number value, which it's kind of something I just created from my own experience as far as whether it's worth going after or not. So the formula for generating an opportunity factor is, and I'll explain this all, it's speed times cost times project value equals this opportunity factor number. And as you see the asterisk there, the lower the number, the stronger the opportunity. So speed is the number of days it would take to get to market to actually start collecting that first dollar. Not that validation stage where we're just seeing possible activity would have happened, but actually getting paid and actually shipping a product or delivering a downloadable product or signing someone up for a membership site or software, whatever it is. But the number of days it takes, estimated wise, for us to get to market to collect money times the cost of what it would take us to get to market. So let's say we see an opportunity in the self-defense niche market, which is actually a good market. And we want to do like an MMA product or some karate product. And so we contact somebody with that expertise. We say, hey, would you be willing to partner with me on this? Or you pay them outright for the content. And you figure out what the cost would be in creating the course, creating the product. And so that becomes our cost. So anything related to registering the domain name, the web hosting, getting it online, anything is that cost to bringing it to market. The total cost to get that first dollar to come in is the cost element there. Now, the project value is based on a separate formula, and I'm going to show you some of it in a minute, a separate formula for how we evaluate competitors and the elements of their business. So when we multiply all this stuff together, we're going to get a number value. And the lower the number, the lower I believe the stronger the opportunity is. And it should get more of your attention and even more of your consideration to go after. So let me briefly explain some project value variables. These are not all of them. You're going to learn all of them throughout the course, but I want to just show you some of them and kind of explain. I'm doing all this. I know for some of you, I may be overwhelming you, and I don't mean to, and I'm kind of showing you a lot of information right away, but I want to kind of give you an overview of some things we're going to be working towards. So as we start putting the pieces together, you're like, oh, that's why he showed me those variables in the beginning. Now I know how it's coming together. So in calculating the total project value, it'll be one number that's plugged into that other formula. We're going to add up a bunch of points or subtract a bunch of points to get a value. So if a competitor's traffic is, if more than 50% is generated from SEO efforts, this creates a value of plus 10 points for the project value total number. Now, plus points are bad because, again, the better opportunities will have the lower OF value. Again, you'll understand all this when it comes together. If they sell physical products, it's another plus 10 points. Obviously, we would prefer to go into an opportunity or business that has digital products, because digital products are what? Faster to make typically and cost less. Physical products usually take, some kind of capital outlay to buy inventory, and just, packaging, labeling, a lot of other costs. Now, with that being said, there are tremendous opportunities to make money online selling physical products, and you're going to find some of those opportunities when we go through this whole process. And you may want to build a business doing it, like supplements, for example. I know of people doing over $1 million a month selling supplements online. It's a huge business. So it's a consideration, but when it comes to these valuables, the plus points have to take away from the opportunity. So in this case, digital is better than physical for the speed and cost reasons. Now, if a business sells multiple products, it's plus 3 points for each product they sell. Now, why is that? Well, it's a negative. If we're looking into a business, we're figuring out how much money it makes, or we can never know exactly, but we can kind of estimate it. When we're figuring all that out, the more products they have, well, that's more speed and more cost for us, right? That takes more time. It's going to cost more money if we're going to have those same types of products in order to compete with them. And in many cases, you will need multiple products to compete with certain businesses. They may have a funnel that's very built out with upsells and back ends and all kinds of products, and that's how they're able to turn a profit, by having all those products. So it's a negative potentially for evaluating an opportunity if a company is making good money, but they're doing so with a bunch of different products. Because again, it goes against our core principles of speed and cost. If they have a large team, and I'm going to show you some techniques to figure this out. If they have a large team of people, it's another negative. We don't want to go into a business, at least not initially, where we have to assemble any sort of large team of people. That's a lot of cost, and it would take a lot of time to hire those people. Obviously, we would prefer to see businesses that we can figure out that are run by like one person and maybe a couple outsourcers. That's the ideal internet business, right? So if we can find those opportunities, those are much more appealing to us than somebody that has a large team. However, there are always exceptions. We may find some tremendous opportunities where it's kind of being run by a large team, but we can go into that market and maybe not make as much as that company if they're making millions, but make several hundred thousand, at least in kind of startup mode for us, with a much leaner, smaller team. If they've been in business for more than 5 years, it's plus 7 points. Again, these plus points are actually bad. They're negatives. Not a negative number, but it's a negative thing. So typically, businesses that have been around for longer than 5 years are very established on the internet and have advantages. Their content, their SEO pages, all their stuff is kind of given authority. You probably know about domain age and some of those other things. So typically, the longer a business has been in business, the harder it is many times to compete with them. Now, this isn't always the case, but usually if they've been around for longer than 5 years, they've either exhausted the opportunity and left, unless they've currently kind of changed direction. And we're going to go into that too as we look at site history and kind of investigate what businesses are doing and what I call their evolution has been. We could find that they were doing something and they changed course, or pivoted, as they say, into some other great opportunity. And so in that case, the greater than 5 years variable point here is diminished, because it's actually now a good thing that even though they've been in business longer than 5 years, they've switched directions. So moving on, monthly ad spend. We see somebody spending more than like $500,000 a month. That's a negative. Typically, it's a negative because it's such a big company that's spending that kind of money. And we don't want to get into businesses. Again, our focus, one of our core principles here is on profit potential. Typically, when companies are spending an enormous amount of money on advertising, it's usually because their margins are very small and they're not actually making a lot of money. If they are making a lot of money, typically their infrastructure, overhead, their team is usually massive. And usually companies online that have budgets of that size or greater are very big established brands, either with proprietary patented products that you can't just clone and compete with. They have some other kind of intellectual property or competitive advantage. There's some greater barriers to entry. They may be an online university. That's not something very easily clonable. So when we see large ad spends, when we look in the ad tools that we're going to use in this class to look at some advertising, it's a negative when it's a huge ad budget. Now, an initial customer order that's over $1,000 is slightly another negative. There are always exceptions to this, but typically we want to look for opportunities where we can kind of find businesses that seem to be making good money, but they're not selling stuff that's really expensive. The reason for this is transactional volume. We want a volume of transactions. The greater number of transactions that we can get, in other words, like individual orders, individual sales, the more data we have in our business, the more we can leverage the data, test things, and grow the business. When you're selling things, when your business is revolved around selling things that are very expensive, it's harder to test things. It's harder to make certain moves when the main product is so expensive. And you'll see some of that as as this all unfolds and we do some research. Now, on the other side of things, let's talk about positive variables that lower this project value number. If their traffic, whoops, I think this slide just backed up on me, I'm sorry. If their traffic is less than 50% from SEO, then we award -2 points for each 10% it is below the 50%. We want to find companies making good money by simply buying a lot of traffic and not relying on SEO. SEO, as you know by now, if you've been in this game at all, it changes often. It's hard to keep up with. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of money, and it just takes a lot of time. And the one thing it takes is that goes against our core principle is that speed factor. So it takes a lot of time. We don't want to take a lot of time. Moving on. So digital products is a positive. Again, you want negative numbers here for the project value because that's multiplied in the formula. It brings the number down and we're looking for a lower value. So if we find an opportunity where it's a digital product, that's a positive because we can probably create it faster or something similar, as well as it'll be more inexpensive and less money than if we had to deal with physical products. If they sell a single product, that's a home run. That's why it's -15 points. If we see a business that seems to be making good money and they're just doing it revolving around one product, that is awesome. That's what we would love to see. Not always the case, but when you find it, that really can get your attention and you should really consider that opportunity. Small team, I said it before, we want to find these one-man shops, these very small teams, because the smaller the team appears to be, the easier it is to replicate. We award some points for a business older than 6 months, under 5 years. I already covered the 5-year thing. The reason why I really focus on greater than 6 months, and you'll see this as kind of a recurring theme throughout the class, is typically most businesses and most websites that are younger than 6 months are really still in kind of the startup experimental stage. Now, you may be the exception after you learn everything in this class because I do this all the time, where you set up a new site that's brand new and you start generating some revenue within less than a month. So speed, getting to market quickly, and you start being in business right away. Now, typically if we find businesses when we do our research that seem to be making good money that are younger than 6 months, they're typically other emulators. I talked about this in kind of the information page for the class. We talk about the emulators. These are people literally finding great opportunities and then getting involved in the action as well and doing similar thing. Basically what you're learning here. So if you find other businesses that are actually doing well and their business is younger than 6 months, I'm going to give you some pointers to look at to figure out if they're emulators or not. Because if they're not, you have to be really careful in evaluating the data to see if they really are turning much of a profit or not. Again, let me remind you of something, and this is another recurring theme. Again, I'm sorry if I'm kind of babbling and rambling here. I just have so much to share with you and so much to tell you, but revenue isn't profit. Sales doesn't mean crap to us. Just because we use tools and can see that kind of people are generating a lot of sales, that doesn't mean a lot. I mean, look at Walmart. They generate gazillions, but their margins are tiny. We don't want to go into businesses and into opportunities where the margins are small. We would love to spend $300 on advertising and get back $500 in sales or sometimes more than that. So we want healthy margins. So again, just because a business is making sales doesn't really mean it's a great opportunity. So let's move on. We find monthly ad spend less than $500,000 and we don't want it to be too low, like only $1,000 a month, but The lower it is, it kind of it's a positive towards valuing that opportunity because it's right in the sweet spot there where it's kind of probably a somewhat new business or a somewhat small business that's making money that found a great opportunity, and it's something we can kind of get involved with too. And then of course, if the initial custom order is less than $500, so before we talked about more than 1,000, now we're talking about less than 500. If it's between 500 and 1,000, it's kind of neutral. I award no points in this equation, but it's less than 500, then that's a positive. Because if they're able to turn a profit on a front-end product less than $500, and especially if it's a one single product business, especially if it's a digital product business, you can start to see how all these things are coming together on what makes a really awesome opportunity and what doesn't make an awesome opportunity. But that's a plus if it's less than $500. So important. Just covering a few things to kind of close this out. Don't get overwhelmed by all this scary math talk. It's not really that scary. You'll learn to do some exercises that I teach you. You'll learn how it all comes together. You'll plug in, the spaces on some forms, and you'll know what to do by the end of this class. And all the math will really come together, and it'll kind of just, work for itself and show you what to do and indicate where you need to go to hopefully make money. Now, I mentioned this before. Some of this may seem very difficult, but once you understand the process, it will just become easier and easier. Like anything else, if you were learning some other language, initially you're like, oh, I'll never be able to do this. Then once you start studying it, you learn the basics, it becomes easier, so on and so forth. Same thing with this stuff. Again, I apologize for rambling during this presentation. I know it kind of took a long time and was slow about things, but there's so much to this that I just kind of wanted to give you a taste of what's to come, a taste of what this is all about, because it is very complicated. Now, the rest of the lessons for this part one, phase one, they're not going to be too complicated. They're going to be some basic exercises. They're kind of warming you up to the process, slowly getting you into competitive intelligence, slowly teaching you some core things. They're very valuable, so don't discount them. But we'll get more and more into the formulas and into the complexity as we kind of go on and as these other basic pieces plug into that. Again, the profit you make is just math. So you got to appreciate the numbers behind your business. You need to know the metrics and the analytics and the revenue numbers and the margins and the average customer values, the lifetime customer value, all these things. We'll go over all these different elements and you'll get them down, but you got to understand and appreciate the math. And of course, last but not least, do all the exercises I give you in the class. Even if you know some of the stuff, if you're advanced and you've been around, internet business for long, do them anyways, because they're going to groove good habits towards doing the entire methodology of the class, doing everything that's in the class related to all this and the entire process, that whole action flow we talked about and everything else. So do all the exercises, take notes like I mentioned before, and really just slowly start appreciating all of this stuff. And by the end, I promise you, you're going to love having this skill to be able to look at another business, completely deconstruct it, figure out what they're doing, figuring out if you should be doing it, or finding another opportunity that you should be going after. And ultimately, what you're going to end up with are some very tough decisions about which opportunities to go after first, and then second, and then third. Because when you learn all this stuff I'm going to teach you, you'll quickly understand why I don't sleep very often. I get so excited about this stuff, and there's so many different ways to make money, and it's a lot of fun. It's really hard to kind of pick one and go for it. But you really have to pick one, by the way, to go with. Don't try to do multiple ones at the same time. And as you'll learn through this class, that's the other reason for our kind of speed and carrying out the process to validate and everything else, because we can move very, very quickly to try to validate an idea, to validate an opportunity before we actually start building the business and making money from it. And so you want to go from the discovery phase to the evaluation phase into the validation phase as quickly as possible, so we can get as close to making money as possible right away. And in doing so, it'll answer kind of those questions that you may have with yourself about which opportunity to go after.